I'm Sohail Rahman in Islamabad, outside the presidential palace. I'm about to talk to Asif Ali Zardari, the president of Pakistan. The land of the pure, as it's called, Pakistan is a country on the edge of financial collapse. With inflation at 25% and over half of the 160 million people living under the poverty line, this country's situation is near to dire. As nations in Europe begin to accept International Monetary Fund loans, Pakistan is still pondering whether it wants to accept the bailout. Having freed itself in 2004 from the burden of IMF scrutiny, Pakistan has less than a week to make a final decision. Pakistan needs up to $10 billion US, and if it accepts, will make the country's financial and government institutions come under the IMF's strict rules and regulations as to where that money can be spent and where revenue should be collected. Taxes are expected to rise, and in some cases it's thought will be imposed on areas of the economy lightly taxed before, such as agriculture. It's expected such moves will court controversy socially and politically in a country walking a delicate financial tightrope. The markets in Pakistan have plenty of produce to sell. The problem is rising prices in the bazaars that are making foods, for example, that were affordable a short time ago, now out of reach. The financial markets in this country have taken as much of a knock here as they have across the world, adding to the worries that investors will not come to Pakistan's aid in the short term. The Pakistani president and prime minister have been on the financial charm offensive, visiting their so-called friends for a cash advance, something all have been unable to offer. Politicians and analysts appreciate the role and importance of Pakistan in world security. Bordering Afghanistan, it has been at the center of the region's conflicts for decades, with the Soviet invasion and America's so-called war on terror with the ousting of the Taliban after the 9/11 attacks. Pakistan is seen as an ally of the West and especially the USA. However, the offensive by US and NATO forces against armed fighters and alleged Taliban operatives in Pakistan continues to strain relations between Islamabad and its international partners. In recent months, US drones allegedly entering Pakistan over the porous border region from Afghanistan have had devastating consequences in the tribal areas. Dozens of civilians have been killed, according to local Pakistani sources, and the aftermath of the destruction is there for all to see. Such images have courted much public anger in Pakistan. Pakistan's military offensive continues in the north of the country. Regaining political governance in areas seen as lawless has been a top priority for many administrations. For the government, led by Asif Ali Zardari's Pakistan People's Party, the task could not be more difficult after only 7 months of democratic rule. The warning from Pakistan is that failure of the international community to help this country could collapse its efforts to fight militancy in the border region, and nationwide social collapse could well follow, leaving this nuclear-armed nation vulnerable to extremists in the countryside and the cities. Mr. President, welcome to Talk to Al Jazeera. I want to begin with the current financial and social crisis that's hitting Pakistan at the moment. You've had many meetings with your so-called friends of Pakistan, the US, the EU, and some Arab states. Why aren't they doing more to help Pakistan?
That's an assumption on a lot of people's part. I have not asked for help from Arabs or the Friends of Pakistan. This is a caucus group to sort of sit together and revisit the situation of the region and see, look back and consider where we are going, regional wise, whether it's the war on terror, whether it's the environment, whether it's other issues of international nature or local bilateral nature. The idea is to get people to come together as a regional situation rather than just an international situation.
Inflation is at 25%, is at a 30-year high. You recently went to China. What sort of help can they give you?
My recent visit to China was my first official visit. Every state, head of state, and when he takes over, he does bilaterals and tours, visits countries, first of all in the neighborhood if possible, and then beyond.
The next Friends of Pakistan meeting is in mid-November. Pakistan is facing deep financial crisis. Financial issues will be top of the agenda, surely?
No, the world is facing financial crisis, if I may say. The whole region, the United States, the world at large. There's a recession of great magnitude not witnessed in the last 30 years. Of course, it has an effect on Pakistan also. So that is there. And the Friends of Pakistan, we're trying to bring all the strengths of all the countries together. Maybe we'll be helping some people where they need some.
But there is a financial crisis in Pakistan.
But the world is facing financial crisis, my
But
friend.
in particular, Pakistan now, I think
Pakistan is also facing a recession, and Pakistan is facing a political, economical situation it's a worldwide phenomenon.
Can you tell me more about this deal with the IMF? Is there one?
Quite a number of countries in the world are talking to the IMF. IMF is a world body which comes into effect whenever a country asks for or requests for. And in our case, we've been in dialogue with the IMF since the day we came in, because the government of the day was looking at the world situation and looking at the local situation, and we thought we need some disciplining. In the past, the governance has not been disciplined enough. So IMF brings in a form of discipline, it brings in a form of regime, which I feel in this particular moment in the history of the world will be helpful to Pakistan.
But you are talking to the IMF. What sort of help are you looking for, financial or just advice?
It takes both. There is financial, there is the way of keeping your monetary policies in a certain framework. So it's a mix of both, and by and large this is a Pakistan initiative, and it's a homegrown formula that they're working out.
At the moment, you're not going to confirm that you're going to take an IMF loan then?
No, I'm not going to confirm because it hasn't happened. I'll confirm only after it has happened.
But are you considering it?
The government of the day is considering it. The government of Pakistan People's Party is considering it. There's been my finance minister has spoken about it.
What are the downsides of taking an IMF loan? It does mean more regulation of Pakistan's finances.
No, we've already taken all those regulations that would have been a prescription, because we seem to agree with them. We believe in less subsidies. We believe in not subsidizing the world product. We believe in the people accepting, spending less, tightening their belts, the governments tightening their belts. So it's like a larger regime which also creates a little confidence in other institutions which are looking towards Pakistan to either invest or come in with large projects which we intend to go for.
Of course, subsidies will be lifted, oil prices will rise, there'll be tax on agriculture.
We've already taken that into account. We've already moved out the subsidies before the IMF could ask us to. That is, the fact of the matter is, you've got to spend as much as you have. You just can't keep on with a population of 180 million people subsidizing people who happen to appreciate 4 cars. So that has to come down. People have to stop spending so much, and that is a good factor.
50% of the population of this country lives below the poverty line. They don't have 4 cars. They're more concerned about the price of tomatoes and the price of chapati flour.
Well, in the situation where the world has become, a global village, what the price of tomato is in Pakistan is probably the price of tomato in Iran, and probably the price of tomato in India. It depends on that season. There's been times when you have to throw away tomatoes because it's overgrown. So that's a market phenomena of demand and supply, and we are putting in effects. We've put in a policy where we will be intervening through an organization called TCP, which comes in and buys the product when it's too cheap, and it releases its commodities. Pakistan has a great future. We have an ample amount of water, and we've got ample amount of land. So we're looking towards, and you know and I know that tomorrow's world is going to be a commodity-oriented world. The wealth of tomorrow is water and commodity. And maybe the old wealths of fossil fuels are going to be leaving behind their shine as such.
But more Pakistanis would say that they're concerned about the issues of today, not the issues of the past.
No, we'll try, and we are aware of that, and we are hoping to make sure that the poor and the people under the poverty line get the least amount of pain.
Pakistan is an ally of America's so-called war on terror, but we've seen a rising number of fatalities in the border area, partly due to militancy. What's your policy on militancy, and how do you expect and want to combat it?
Well, Pakistan People's Party has had a consistent policy on the terrorism. We are victims of terrorism. We lost our great leader Shahid Mahatma Benazir Bhutto to terrorism. We've lost many of our party workers to terrorism, and terrorism happens to be a world phenomena, and Pakistan happens to be in the eye of the storm, to say for a phrase, and we are dealing with it accordingly.
The government recently held a jirga here in Islamabad. Is that the right policy, getting all of the stakeholders together, be they tribal or in some cases militants, to talk together and see whether there is a way forward?
I don't think a dialogue is possible with the militants. Dialogue is possible with the populist, and the populists have always a majority. It's the minority that takes up a form of, takes up arms to register their point of view. By and large, the majority does not do that, and we're in a dialogue with the majority.
We've seen tribal jirgas and agreements in 2006, they collapsed in 2007.
Sure.
What do you think can be gained from this particular jirga for the future, and will it work?
Well, it's constant interaction. It's a constant endeavor. You go 1 foot forward and 1 foot back. There have been situations of the same kind in other parts of the world where things have taken 60 years to 80 years to 150 years to settle down. So we can't say that democracy can solve the situation in 54 days. It'll take time.